Hello, bonsoir, and welcome to the Get French Football News Show. I'm your host, Nathan Staples, and joining me this week, as always, are Eric Devin and Philippe Bargil, with European competition starting up again and Ligue 1 heading into the final third. Things are really reaching a boiling point as teams jostle for position and for glory. But before we take a look back on the week that was, here is the latest news. Bordeaux and Nice got the league weekend off to a less than inspiring start as the pair played out a scoreless draw at the Matmut Atlantique, a result that helps neither side. Saturday's early match saw Reims travel to the capital to take on leaders Paris Saint-Germain, and the Champagne club turned in a gritty performance, responding to an early goal from Gregory Van der Wiel to level the match 1-1 on 34 minutes. The champions, however, responded as they so often have, Zlatan Ibrahimovic playing scorer and creator for Edinson Cavani to stake Laurent Blanc's Chargers to a 3-1 advantage at the break. With an additional goal midway through the second half, Ibrahimovic has had a hand in all 4 goals, 4-1 the final score. In the multiplex, there were goals and drama aplenty as a late equaliser from Martin Braithwaite kept Toulouse's hopes of survival on life support against 10-man Gazélec Ajaccio, a 1-1 draw really helping neither side. The other 3 matches had more goals in them, starting in a dramatic Breton derby that saw Lorient defeat Guingamp at the Moustoir 4-3. A tricky free-kick routine allowed Rafael Guerreiro to score the winner in injury time, Majid Waris and Yanis Salibur both having notched braces as well. Montpellier also won by a single goal, 3-2, but had to hold on after racing out to a 3-0 lead at Angers, a win which is their 3rd in 5 matches and leaves them in 15th, perhaps just beginning to pull clear of the relegation places. Finally, Monaco kept up their winning ways, deploying a surprising 4-4-2 to beat Troyes 3-1. Guido Correa's partnership with Wagner Love seeing the big Argentine net twice, with 17-year-old Kylian Mbappe Lotin adding a 3rd in injury time. Sunday afternoon saw the 2 Europa League participants square off, and a pair of late goals saw Marseille snatch a point at the Velodrome, 1-1 as Michy Batshuayi cancelled out Kevin Monipakie's opener in injury time. Caen won their first game in 4 matches, summer signing Saidi Ntibazonkiza, scoring the match's solitary goal in a home victory over struggling Rennes. In the weekend's final match, Lyon and Lille played out a bad-tempered affair at the Stade Pierre-Mauroy. The hosts' 1-0 victory denying Lyon, who finished with 9 men, the chance to move into 3rd place. In Ligue 2, Dijon could only draw away at Stade Lavallois, while Nancy's win sees them move to just a point behind the leaders. In the chase for 3rd, surprise package Red Star won again, as did Le Havre, although Metz can move back onto the podium places with a win away to Nîmes today. In injury news, Lyon's Corentin Tolisso is set to miss up to a month with a hamstring injury, while Bordeaux's Yaroslav Plachil joins a crowded treatment table at Bordeaux, his own hamstring issue looking to cause a 6-week absence. Laurent Blanc also delivered the news that the removals of Marco Verratti and Angel Di Maria against Reims were merely cautionary measures and both should be fit for the Champions League second leg in London. Bordeaux reserve goalkeeper Jérôme Poire is set to train with the club's CFA team for the immediate future, the result of a dressing room incident with Lamine Sané in the wake of the club's loss to Nantes in the Coupe de France. And remember, for all your latest French football needs, head on over to our website at www.getfootballnewsfrance.com and follow us on Twitter at GFFN. We start with a look back at Paris Saint-Germain's 2-1 win in the Champions League against Chelsea. It was probably a tighter affair than many have predicted, especially in England. But Philip, was this a really good result for PSG?
I think it was. 2-1 is never really that great when you think about it, because a 1-0 defeat can knock you out. And PSG were in this situation 2 years ago. Seemed to be playing against Chelsea every season. When we won 3-1 against them, and Pastore had a blind in the at the end of the first leg, but then Chelsea, I think it was Dembaba who scored the second goal for Chelsea, and Chelsea went through an away goal. So again, everybody was saying, well, why do they get to go through? Because they scored the away goal, and then the season after that, PSG come to Stamford Bridge and scores the away goal during extra time, and then you had the Chelsea not complaining. But yeah, 2-1 is a pretty tight. But I'm so relieved that it's 2-1 and not 1-1. This was a fantastic game of football. So for PSG, Aurier was not playing for obvious reasons. Lavezzi has gone to China, and a good start to the game. Very intense, lots of intensity. Two very lucky goals. Zlatan Ibrahimovic is not really a well hit free kick, but it does go in, which we only ask him for that much. PSG conceded a goal on a set play on the corner. That's pretty worrying. Ibrahimovic again in the centre of attention, deflecting the ball straight into Mikel's pass. And Chelsea defended so well in the second half. It was Cahill and Ivanovic at the back because Terry and Zuma were out, and Zuma will be out for some time. Terry may be back for the second leg, and they just defended so well. In 2012, it was the same back line in some games of the Champions League, and they were just so good. And I honestly thought that the game would end 1-1, and because the chances were being created. Courtois made some good saves. They weren't world-class saves because they didn't really need to be. And then Di Maria does not give the ball on the left-hand side to Maxwell. He again delivers a fantastic pass to Cavani, and Cavani who scores, and then it was just absolute bedlam in the Parc des Princes, in basically every bar in Paris. I was actually over the moon, and I do believe when you look at it, that this goal will be probably one of the most important ones of the season. So it's not the best result, but honestly it could have been worse. It could have been 1-1, and at 1-1 I really wouldn't be so confident of progressing.
Eric, what are your thoughts about PSG's performances against Chelsea? I mean, Chelsea were very stout in defence. Is it a little bit disappointing that it ended 2-1?
No, I don't think. I would hesitate to call it disappointing. I think that on the whole, Chelsea really exceeded expectations. The likes of Baba Rahman and Gary Cahill, after not being included in the side for the most part under Gus Hiddink, I think both of them in particular really exceeded expectations. I saw on several sites and commentary that the match was played as the Chelsea of old, as it were. And PSG were at the races. I think that their midfield moved the ball really well, and they created a lot of opportunities. But in terms of really gilt-edged scoring chances, there just weren't really a lot of them. And credit to Chelsea for that. I do think, that being said, that PSG are well equipped to give Chelsea a difficult test at the bridge. But the worry on my end now is, as Philip rightly said, with the scoreline, is can they really prevent Chelsea from scoring just that one goal that they need? I mean, we've seen how opportunistic Chelsea can be, particularly from set pieces. Especially if Terry's fit. I think that PSG acquitted themselves well, given how well Chelsea defended, but the result still leaves me a little bit worried. Blanc is obviously focusing all of his energies on this match, as you mentioned in the news, withdrawing Berratti and Di Maria so as not to potentially aggravate any issues that they've had. So yeah, I think that they did all right on the night, but I just, part of me doubts that it was enough to go through.
And that, for the record, I don't think we'll keep a clean sheet at Stamford Bridge, but I do believe that we'll score.
So taking that into account, that both of you probably think they won't keep a clean sheet at Stamford Bridge, Philip, is it probably best in the best interest for PSG to go and attack them when they head to England rather than sit back and hold on to the 2-1 lead they already have.
Yeah, we can't play for 0-0. That would be probably not suicide because their attacking is not world class either. But I do believe that score an away goal is a must, because otherwise there won't be this pressure. And with PSG, especially this past week, I mean that there was this goal conceded against us on a set piece as well, with Trapp basically fumbling his shot. It doesn't look as bad when you really look at it as first seen, but that's 2 goals conceded on set pieces, which is pretty worrying. So taking that into account, you can just feel playing against Chelsea for an hour and a half plus stoppage time that someone's going to make a mistake, and Trapp is I want to say accident prone, which is a bit harsh, but yeah, that just doesn't feel like we'll be able to keep a clean sheet at Chelsea, because this is basically the biggest game of the season. Well, okay, they've got the FA Cup. They're playing against Man City's third teams, the under 21s, so getting great moral boosting wins for that. But yeah, just it would be suicide. It would be complete suicide to play it defensively. We could obviously got the personnel and stuff, but no, not against Chelsea. I mean, they're still pretty good. The players are still Champions League quality, and you just can't take that kind of risk, especially for Blanc, because he's basically playing his season. There's such an obscene amount of pressure on that.
Eric, do you think that attack might be their best form of defence as well? I mean, a goal means that Chelsea then have to definitely come out of their shells a little bit more.
I think it's really a situation that has to be taken as it comes. I think that starting a similar formation with starting the same 11, that they did in the home leg is what they need to do. Playing Marquinhos at right back, I think, gives them a little bit more solidity there than does playing Van der Veer. I think to have a compact defense and start Lucas and Di Maria in the wide areas and sort of let them see what they can create in the first half an hour, 40 minutes, and then see how the match evolves. If they fail to break through, then that becomes the real question. Do they stick or twist? If the game remains scoreless at halftime, then they're halfway to achieving the result that they need. But the other side of that coin is, if Chelsea then score, then that gives PSG with that much less of an opportunity in which to get their own goal. So, I would start out attacking and then gradually withdraw where I Blanc. But again, it's a risky decision. There's no real easy answer or right answer for how to set up tactically and how to approach the match in terms of style. It's not a dilemma that I'd like to have presented to me were I in charge of the club, and I don't exactly envy Blanc's situation, especially given the issues that he's had with Aurier.
It's going to be something we'll talk about as well, probably next week in lead to the game next midweek. But the champions also had a game at the weekend in the league with a strong 4-1 win against Reims. Zlatan scoring a brace and being involved in all the goals, taking his total in the league to this season to 23. That's 10 more than anyone else. It's 11 more than Edison Cavani, and he's only played 58 more minutes than the Uruguayan. The question really is now, Philip, he was involved in the Champions League goals, he was involved with all the goals of the weekend. Should PSG sign the Swedish international to a new deal in the summer?
I think they pretty much have to, really. He was under a lot of pressure this summer because he didn't perform, but he wasn't the only one. He didn't play a particularly good part against Chelsea last season in the Champions League. He got sent off at Stamford Bridge, and actually PSG played better without him, so with 10 men. And then the game against Barcelona, obviously for most of it he was suspended. I just feel that he does deserve it for what he brings to the side. But I think one last foray is in order. I think it would not be unjustified. It would be very, very much deserved for Zlatan to have one last season. But still, the future has to be prepared, and PSG really do need to sign the backup for Zlatan Ibrahimovic quite soon. And it's probably a good thing that Zlatan is being pegged. Zlatan's contract is being pegged for one more year, because it enables us to look for the adequate number 9 to lead the line and have the necessary pressure. I'm thinking of Aguero maybe, but with all these injuries, you never know. But it's going to be that type of pressure anyway.
Eric, what do you think? And another interesting point: if he is offered a new deal, if you're Ibrahimovic, do you take it?
Given his form this season, and given how he's shown a level of adaptability, to let Lucas, to let Angel Di Maria take a little bit more of an attacking role and be sort of the fulcrum of the attack, the focal point of attack, when necessary, I do think that he deserves another year. It seems like he's still playing at a level which allows him to be capable, and maybe not every single match, week in, week out, over a 50 or 60 match season, but there's still enough in the tank left there, and he seems to be picking and choosing his moments a little bit better with age, and showing a willingness to defer, which I don't think we'd really seen in previous seasons, his statistics notwithstanding. Now that we are seeing adaptability on the part of the big Swede, I think we really have to look at this as, his desire to be a part of a cogent team attack. And for me, to have a player of that level of experience and that level of talent willing to start to modulate his role a little bit to be part of a team where that had previously been an issue, see his short-lived career at Barcelona, et cetera, he's never shown this sort of willingness before. I think what we're seeing is a even at 34, a more mature player, and someone who's willing to realize the massive potential that this team has to bring home a Champions League trophy, and that's something that he's sought for his whole career. And I'm thinking about the other contenders, if you will, across Europe, be the 3 Spanish teams, perhaps Juventus in a pinch, Bayern Munich. Where does Zlatan fit into any of these? This is the one piece of silverware that he's missing in his club career, and this season he's shown a great level of motivation to achieve that. And I think for those reasons, as well as for a lack of other options for him as a player, he should continue his stay at Paris Saint-Germain.
Saying this, I do not believe he will win the Champions League with PSG, which means I do not believe he will win the Champions League at all. That's
I don't disagree with that, but I think that that's his best opportunity. He's not going to go to Barcelona.
Certainly.
Perhaps an undefeated season, another treble, maybe getting to the semifinals or the final, depending on the draw. Again, the top 4 are there, but Juventus and Bayern are playing each other. That's one of, I think, the other 4 or 5 top teams out in the round of 16. And with so many teams, the likes of you're going to have one of a Zenit or Benfica going through. You're going to have one of Wolfsburg and Ghent going through. There really are, perhaps a few more teams than usual. Manchester City versus Kiev, I would take PSG over either of those sides. There's going to be a real opportunity for PSG to get to the semifinals this year, based on the fact that there's simply a lot more teams that against which they would stack up favorably.
Depends if they get drawn against Bayern or Barcelona. The rest is. So to me, I'd be disappointed if PSG got knocked out by anyone else than those two.
Even Atletico.
Yeah, I'd say Atletico. This is the one I really want because I'd like to go there to Calderon, and I really do reckon it would be probably one of the quarterfinals of the year, basically one of the games of the year, and I think it would be extremely tight. But I do reckon if you're asking me a bold prediction between those two, I think that PSG would progress. But
Uh,
again, a great
be careful
what a
what you
great.
wish for, Philip.
Yeah, I know. I know.
I mean, I don't know. I've seen Atletico 6 or 7 times this season. They're my team in Spain, and
Mm.
I I think PSG would have a very difficult time against them.
Mm. It's all
No, I agree. I mean, yeah, but it would
I'm
be fascinating though.
I'm thinking Atletico the antithesis of PSG at the moment. That might be the worry. But very quickly on PSG to finish off, we're talking about Zlatan possibly renewing and how they should do it. Where does that leave Edinson Cavani then, Philip? Should he be going?
Not really. I mean, he is working hard after all, and he is getting some good goals. But if the guy, it depends on him. If he's fine with playing on the wing and not playing in his natural position, in the years where he really should be doing that, then yeah, why not? Um, because it's also a problem of wages as well. Where is he going to get that greater deal at PSG? He'll probably get that at two other clubs, and again, I don't even think that those clubs would be able to cough up that much money. There were some rumors over the years, long time ago, of him going to Manchester United because when they didn't have a ready-made striker was before they signed Martial. And I can see that. I mean, why not? Big club and all that. But no, I think that on the current format, I think he's perfectly happy coming on as a sub in the Champions League and playing those games in the league and not doing too badly. But he's still not recognised. I mean, he's not doing superbly, but he's not doing Lavezzi bad. Lavezzi was really his probably the things he said in the press and stuff. But it's not the same thing with Cavani. I mean, he's not. I wouldn't say he's a crowd favorite, but he still has the support of the fans. So he can stay. I mean,
Well,
It's more
we'll have
winning.
him.
so I mean, perfectly happy. Let's look at his celebration in the Champions League. That was very pointed towards Blanc, coming all the way back to the half line to celebrate on his knees in front of his manager, saying, "Hey, I should be starting here, not Lucas." Uh, and
Really?
that's how I interpret that celebration. I mean, he's saying, "Hey, look, why are you starting Lucas? I'm the one that's here to get you a goal when you need it." And again, I don't think Cavani is of the level to be a number 9 for a Champions League winning team.
Yep.
But at the same time, I think that he as you rightly said has you know I think he's worked so hard, biding his time to see Ibrahimovic out the door. But now that it looks like Ibrahimovic is maybe potentially going to stick around another year, or that he's being dropped in favor of Lucas, I think that his frustration might be getting to be shown a little bit here. In terms of selling him, I mean, there are a lot of attractive destinations for him. I mean, looking at the Premier League with the money that'll be available to them, I do think that there are options to sell Cavani, and I don't think that he's irreplaceable. But that being said, the likes of perhaps Lewandowski's been mentioned. It's tough to see where you would get that second option were something to happen to Ibrahimovic, or were Ibrahimovic's form to drop off precipitately next season. So, from a club perspective, I think they should hang on to him and try and figure out some way to placate him. Perhaps allow him a little bit more time to play up top next season.
I think he will get that actually. What with Zlatan not getting any younger and that being probably his last season, I think he will get time. That kind of opportunity a bit more often. But the thing is, it's always the same. I mean, he did miss an open goal against Lille, which is not great, for his confidence, for everyone, basically for everyone. There's nobody really doubted Zlatan being a confident player, whereas I think Cavani is a bit more that he really needs to be in the good type of shape and form to actually perform. And it's tough having a number 9 like that, because you're just before a big game, and chances are the guys, I don't know, he had a bad game just before, stuff like that. So it's pretty tough. So I wouldn't put him with too much responsibility.
I just turning 29, I can't imagine Cavani will stand for another sit on the bench. You're turning 30 and then you manage to start for a big European club. That's I can't imagine that. I think someone will come in for him if Zlatan does say. But we will move on. Sunday's early fixture saw the 2 Europa League sides face off against each other in between their 2 European games, surprisingly. It ended in a 1-1 draw as Marseille scored a very late equaliser through Michy Batshuayi to deny Saint-Etienne what would have been a big win. Eric, was this an opportunity missed for both sides in that race for the third Champions League spot?
I don't think Marseille are a contender for that spot at this point. I know the table's still tight, but they've not shown that they can do it week in, week out, put together a consistent run. And, now Nkulu receives a straight red. He's out for 3 matches, which means that they're going to be playing with likely Rekik or Sparagna alongside Rolando, which doesn't exactly inspire confidence in me. I don't think that Marseille are a contender for that. On the other side of the coin, though, Saint-Etienne, gosh, this is the third time at least that I could think of this season that they've been undone by a late free kick. There were a couple matches earlier in the season. I want to say a draw against Bordeaux and a loss to somebody else. I'm blanking. It was the second or third week of the season where a late free kicks cost them points. If you bring those back, Saint-Etienne are pushing Monaco for
second match day.
Yeah.
There was another one. It was either the week before or the week after. There were 2 weeks in a row where they conceded a late free kick to drop points. One was a draw, one was a loss. And give them 4 or 5 more points, and then look where they are. They're on 46, 47 points, and they're pushing Monaco for second, not fighting amongst a scrum of other teams for third place. This is I'd say this is points drop for Saint-Etienne.
Me too.
Batshuayi, he's in a crowd, but that header's a great header. Don't get me wrong, but it's too easy. It's just not it's not good enough for Saint-Etienne from a defensive perspective. I mean, they've built this reputation under Galtier generally in being a solidly defensive side, and then to have the issues that they've had from set pieces this year is, that's what's keeping them from being in the Champions League. I think that the depth of the squad they have, the summer signings that they've made have been by and large successful. And now that they're rounding back into health, Hamouma's back, Perrin will be back soon. This is the time when they need to start picking up points. I know that the Europa League's still a bit of a distraction, and they could potentially go through, but I think their focus really needs to be the league right now. And but being undone by these set pieces makes you question whether they've really got it in them to take that third place.
Just some stats to back you up, Eric, on that. 2 clean sheets in the last 8 league games. So just pretty much tell you everything you need to know. Because I completely agree, because you had that game against Monaco, and Monaco aren't the most exciting side going forward. They're just extremely solid. And they concede the equaliser at Marseille. They're not very good going forward either. They concede the equaliser. They concede against Monaco with 6 minutes to go. Yesterday they conceded a goal deep into injury time, having just taken the lead. It's one of those things where I do reckon that if Saint-Etienne don't score their goal, they don't concede the Batshuayi goal, which is, I mean, it's not a bad header, but you would expect Ruffier to save it. I'm not saying it was a blooper or anything, but it's still a pretty soft goal to concede. And I do agree that those two games against Monaco and Marseille, big games. You don't need extra motivation. Okay, there's Europa League against Basel. That's a distraction. So the players are probably thinking about their match fitness and whether they won't be able to play those 4 games. But it should have been 6 points and not 2. And that's a major difference because if Saint-Etienne get 4 additional points, they are 4 points clear in third and just 3 behind Monaco. It really changes the whole race for the second spot. This.
And I think a lot of the results on the weekend, full stop, did that. And even though Marseille didn't have been in poor form, even though they've lost possibly their best defender, even though they had to rely on a very late equaliser to keep, and they've still got an incredibly bad, poor home form that lasts about 4 months now. They're 5 points off third place, which sounds ridiculous. And you've already mentioned, Eric, that you don't think they will get it, but Philip, there's still a minute chance that they can get that place. It would still require other teams doing poorly, but that's just how close that race is at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, let's hope not, because Marseille are third bottom in the home form only. So the only worst home sides in the league are Toulouse and Troyes, who are the bottom 2. And it's just that the club needs to determine a long-term strategy. It's not even about the players, about the policy, about selling all their great players abroad once again, and not having the squad to challenge for Europe. It's just that there's no real plan forward, and I think them not being in Europe next season would be a good thing for the club. They're just not ready to have that kind of distraction. Just like Bordeaux, I mean, they really need to focus on the league and the cups, because the squad isn't big enough, and the club basically doesn't know where it's going. So I think it's important that they don't finish in Europe. No offense to the Marseille fans who are listening to us.
Eric, I just wanted to pick up something of the team selection for Marseille at the weekend as well. They started Stephen Fletcher instead of Michy Batshuayi, and admittedly the young Belgian does need a rest, but was this the right kind of game to give him that rest? With, like I say, they're only 5 points off third, and with a win they could have been even closer.
Yeah, I think that Michel's probably looking ahead to the second leg against Athletic Bilbao in this case, and he did bring him on. It's not as if he employed similar tactics with Gignac last season, giving him a rest when as well, just for rotation. I mean, let's face it, before the arrival of Fletcher, Batshuayi had featured in just about every single match. There's really not a second option for a striker there beyond the youngster who started up top 2 weeks ago. Any event,
Cabillard.
Yes, Cabillard. Thank you. I do think that this was the right match, given that one goal will bring that tie back to life on Thursday at the San Mames, and I think that for Michel, who's has Spanish roots, I think that perhaps getting a result against Bilbao might be for him more of a priority at this point than league performance. I think, even given that they're close in points, there's just so many teams above them that have to stumble. I know that Angers have been slipping a little bit lately, but the rest of those teams don't really look to be giving up a whole lot. But beyond that, even, I mean, looking at the table, I mean, Lille with that win, I believe, are only a point or two behind Marseille as well. It's not just the teams ahead of them that they've got to worry about, but the teams that are behind them. Yeah, Lille are 2 points behind. Even Montpellier, I think, have looked a lot better under Frédéric Hans. They're 4 points behind Marseille as well. There's qualifying for Europe via the league is certainly no certainty, and I think that Michel with this team selection has shown that he's placing some focus on the Europa League, and I think rightly so at this point. I think that the fans are going to be more inspired by a run to, say, the round of 16, the round of 8 in the Europa League than they are battling for 5th or 6th in the league, which I really think at this point is best case scenario for Marseille. I don't think that they're going to fish out for 3rd at all, unfortunately.
And admittedly, with those results, it's the ideal week for Monaco, really. But we'll talk about the Europa League performances now, and we'll start with Saint-Etienne, who came out 3-2 winners. Philip, was that a little bit of a disappointing result after they were sending to about a 3-0 lead?
Most pundits said so, because 3-2 is a bit like it's even worse than the PSG result, because the away side scored 2 away goals. But I was quite surprised, because most pundits were actually complaining that Saint-Etienne conceded 2 goals, but the upside was that they scored 3, and that Saint-Etienne were 2-0 up. They were pegged back to 2-2, but then Jean-Christophe Bayebec scored a quite wonderful goal. I thought it was very good, and won 3-2. I mean, they showed real character in that game, and I do reckon that they will progress in Switzerland. Even though, yes, I mean the defending wasn't great, but it changed completely from last season, because last season it was a very boring Saint-Etienne last season. Went to a game at the San Siro, Inter Milan Saint-Etienne. Most of the games were 0-0, 0-0s or 1-1s. And so after 5 match days, Saint-Etienne had 5 points, and they lost at Dnipropetrovsk in the Ukraine, so they bowed out. This season it's different. I mean, they are attacking. Galtier is taking this seriously, and they're much more adventurous in Europe, which is great, really. And then, of course, yeah, when you're adventurous, you do tend to concede more goals, because the defensive midfielders aren't shielding the defense as much as they would be in another format or something like that. But you still get people complaining. I just don't get it. It's just it was a great game and a great win for Saint-Etienne, and I think they've got as much chance of beating Basel than PSG has a chance of beating Chelsea. It really is a good result, and I'm actually looking forward to that one.
It was a good win in the end, but Eric, those 2 goals must have been a little bit gut wrenching, really, for Christophe Galtier especially.
Yeah, I thought the penalty was maybe a little harsh. To see that given, but yeah, it was a little frustrating. I think Philip's right. I mean, last season, this time, Saint-Etienne put together a really fantastic run, but it was really based on playing an opportunistic, counter-attacking style. They had that 3-man midfield with Lemoine, Diomande, and
Clément, was it, or was he out? Steve was out.
It was Clément, Lemoine, and Diomande just sitting in that 3-man midfield and letting Gradel and Hamouma go up and try and create something on the counter. But this season, he's been using Renan Coad a little bit more, Monet Paquet, Babek, Tanan. There's a little bit more quality going forward now, and he's used Vincent Pajot, and I think has been not a consistent addition, but I think that he shows a little bit more willingness to get forward in midfield when he's used. So I think that, yeah, you're right, that Saint-Etienne are a more entertaining team to watch this season. It's just a shame that they've been done at the back unnecessarily on a few occasions. I think that, again, I've got to agree that I think that they can go to Basel and get a result. I think even a scoreless draw would suit them. Perhaps they can, go back to last season's playbook, and because they still have that in their locker, of course. Saint-Etienne can open up and play attacking, but they can also, conversely, sit back and defend really well. So Galtier's got a deep squad. Selnes and Soderlund are cup-tied, unfortunately, for this, but I think that they've got every opportunity to go to Switzerland and shut down that attack.
As for Marseille, they were really undone by an absolutely spectacular goal from Maritza Ruiz. If you've not seen it, go and watch this goal. It's absolutely sensational stuff. But how hard does that make their task heading to the San Mamés on Thursday?
No fun, impossible, I would say. It's they weren't. It's not that they weren't particularly inspired on Thursday. They were actually all right. It's just that this goal was the bright spot in an otherwise ordinary game. And in many ways they're unlucky, because if I do it twice this, most of the time he'll probably go in the stands or in Row Z. So yeah, quite unlucky, and you do get that. I think we all get that Bilbao has a bit more talent and within their ranks than Marseille, and I think they'll lose a return as well.
Eric, what do you think to that one? I mean, they have a little bit of hope that it seems like Inaki Williams has twisted an ankle during the weekend and might be a push for Thursday's game. But do you still think it's a pretty tall order?
I don't think it's a tall order. I mean, let's face it, they're missing Remy Cabella, who's I think since his arrival has been at the heart of a lot of the good things that Marseille have shown, both going forward and tracking back in defense. So on that count, this team is ready to go and has the options to be opportunistic and score a goal. Yes, I think they'd like to have the likes of Mendy and JJ back, but the fullbacks they do have will be willing to get forward and attack, and if they can play, the likes of Nkudu and an Alessandrini instead of Tovan, cough cough, from the outset, I think that they've got a good chance to score, and that front four of Nkudu, Cabella, Batshuayi, and Alessandrini, were that to be what Michel opts for, I think are going to give them a great opportunity to get an equalizer. They only need one goal to take it to extra time, and I don't put that past them at all. And we've seen particularly against PSG a few weeks ago how Marseille can be really effective in locking teams down, in pressing from the front and using those wingers aren't afraid to work and track back and do their job defensively to limit a team. Again, Athletic Bilbao are always a resolute defensive team, but with the pace from the likes of Nkudu and the creativity of Alessandrini, I do think that there's a good chance that Marseille go through. Wouldn't make them favorites, but it also wouldn't surprise me.
And also having to play the Basque Derby in between the two games might give Marseille a little bit extra edge than they might have done. We'll move on to Toulouse, who admittedly are in a little bit of a pickle. They've lost the last 5 of their last 7. They've drawn the other 2 and scored just twice during that run. They needed an added time equaliser from Martin Braithwaite against Gazalec on Saturday and a 7 points off safety, Philip. Are they doomed?
Yeah. I was quite positive about Toulouse and Arribagé when they were playing. They were seemingly playing a PSG every week because they played against them in the league, in the Coupe de la Ligue, and in the Coupe de France. So their last win was 9th of January, 7 games ago, at Reims. A big win against a direct competitor for the drop. Then lose to PSG. Okay, it's not the end of the world, sorry. And besides, they didn't even play that badly. They didn't get battered. They conceded a late Zlatan Ibrahimovic goal. I mean, no disgrace in that. Lose at Monaco 4-0. Okay, that's pretty bad. Lose at home to Guingamp. That's extremely bad. But to me, what signals their demise to Ligue 2 are the last 2 games. Lose at Montpellier. They didn't even play that badly at Montpellier, really, because they had the chances to win it. But it just seems that every time the ball goes in their penalty areas, they just concede a goal. And they didn't really deserve to lose at Montpellier, but they did. And the last chance was on Saturday at home to Gazélec, and they needed that last gasp goal to equalise, which means that they are still very far from safety, very much so. They're lucky that Reims didn't pick up any points this match day, but I do believe that they are down and out, and there will be no miracles this time around. They've got quite a few tough games to come in their last games. The 35th and 36th match day, which is 3 and 4 games before the end of the season, respectively, against Lyon and Saint-Etienne. Okay, the last home game is at Troyes, who will be in Ligue 2 by then. Then a trip to Angers. I don't know. I just can't see it, unfortunately. So I did say that they were going to stay with Ben Yedder, but as it turns out, they're probably not.
Well, Eric, looking at their next 5, if anything, it's Rennes at home, Marseille away, Bordeaux at home, Lille away, Caen at home. None of those are really easy games.
Well,
It, it,
going to the
it's-
Velodrome hasn't been a problem for most people
but you have
year.
to think that they have to try and get at least 2 wins, I would imagine, out of those 5 to give them a little bit of hope at this sort of stage of the season. Is that doable?
No, I don't think so. I think they're down. I think that we've seen uh, we've seen an attempt at from Arabashi's part to move things around tactically, but the fact is there's no creative fulcrum in that team. I mean, we've seen Akro and Trejo give their best to try and be some sort of creative impetus, but the fact is they're just not of the quality needed to create the chances for that front two of Braithwaite and Ben Yedder. Those two are a decent strike partnership, but if they're not being afforded the service that they need from midfield, there's no chance there. Add to this discipline, Toulouse had 10 players, or not 10 players, but Toulouse have received 10 red cards this season, the worst in the league. We've seen that be the undoing of Bastia on numerous occasions. But I think Toulouse have been even worse in terms of their disciplinary record. I mean, it's exceptionally difficult to get 3 points playing with a man down, and that's happened too many times in this season. This is a team that's already lacking in terms of talent compared to most of the rest of the league, and then to turn around and have to play against a man advantage it's simply an impossible task. This team is just not set up to get the best out of what they have in terms of the strikers. I think personally in the winter they should have swapped Ben Yedder for a creative player and made Braithwaite the focal point of the offense. I mean, I think that his power and physicality make him the sort of a good focal point to play perhaps 4-2-3-1 and play on the counter, but obviously the club's hierarchy deemed Ben Yedder too important to their survival and wanted to hold on to him despite several prospective offers. And with all these factors combined, it's just next to impossible, especially with the results of the weekend. If they had beaten Gazelec and drawn them a little bit closer to them in 18th place, I think they might have had half a chance. But I think they're 8 points, 9 points adrift of safety. It's just not going to happen.
And I mean, we mentioned that Ben Yedder was kept because he was deemed so important, but they've scored 2 goals in 4 games. They didn't score for 2 games, and I believe in saying that obviously Martin Braithwaite scored the one at the weekend. I don't think Ben Yedder got the one the other week. He got a good sprightly amount of goals during January, ironically enough, when people probably wanted to sign him, but he's gone dry again, and that's probably what's killed off Toulouse in the end. They're not scoring enough, and you mentioned it perfectly, Eric. I don't know why they didn't try and cash him in, try and get a couple of midfield players that will create for someone like Braithwaite, who's actually having an okay season, especially compared to his previous 2 campaigns. I think he's come on this season to be a bit more of a threat up front. But
I think the game at Reims has a lot to answer to that, because without Ben Yedder, who did score a hat-trick at Reims, most of the local radio I was listening to a podcast the day just after that win, most of them were saying, we can't sell Ben Yedder, otherwise we're going down. But as it turns out, they're going down even with him. So it's at the time it looked a decent decision by the board, by Cedron, by Harry Baget, by everyone involved. But of course, when you score only 1 goal in 6 after that game, or 2 goals in 7, yeah, it doesn't make for great reading. But I can understand Toulouse for not cashing in, because they will cash in this summer, because you can't have that type of player playing in Ligue 2 though. I don't think. I'm not an expert, but you can't have that type of player playing in Ligue 2. I don't think a club like Lyon or Marseille wouldn't mind having a guy like Ben Yedder up front next season, especially if Michy does move to England.
yeah, and it does seem unusual that they didn't try to cash on him. When you look at the goals he scored this season, I mean, he scored 8 goals. You've already mentioned that there was a hat-trick against Reims.
Yeah.
And a great stat that will make a lot of people laugh. His last goal was on the 30th of January, so almost the final day, the final game before the window shuts. So, and he's not scored since, and I don't think he's had an assist since. No, he's not had an assist since last year. So,
Not to mention that goal on the 30th was a penalty.
yep, and the spread out in he scored in week 1. It took him until week 15 to score again, and then he went on a good. He scored 6 goals in 5 games. That's probably convinced them to keep him, and then he's scored 1 since then, which was, like you say, a penalty. So it does seem maybe on the face of it, you would think keeping an important player like that would be crucial for a side like that. But ironically, that might be what sent them down. But we will.
It is easy to say those things in hindsight, but it does look pretty bleak.
He was playing for a move, he didn't get it,
Yeah.
and he falls off the radar. I mean, that's the thing. I tweeted, I don't know, back in December or something, he had scored a brace in the cup, I want to say, and I said, hashtag playing for a move or something about him, and trying to be funny, but the fact is, there's probably a lot of truth to what I said. Now that the window's shut and he doesn't see himself moving to the summer, watch him score, 4 or 5 goals in the last 8 matches when, safety's not in the cards. I just feel like this guy, and he's 25, he's still at an age where he can move to a bigger league or a bigger team and develop, any other that is. But for the time being, he's not motivated for the right reasons, and you think what sort of attacking talent you could have gotten for that money, whether it's someone that's not being used at a bigger club or someone from a smaller league. You look at what say Saint-Etienne have done with Tanan and Sutherland. I mean, those players, probably are going to need more money to come to a club like Toulouse versus someone who's playing in Europe. But the fact is, if you look at the Eredivisie, the Portuguese division, the Scandinavian divisions, there are divisions that are a step below Ligue 1 that are full of really bright attacking talent. And for Toulouse not to have sought that out in the window, I think was a huge mistake because, like I said, what they're getting creatively is coming from Akbro from deep, or from Trejo, but their quality simply isn't enough.
Like you say, it's interesting to think that it seems like he was playing for a move, and that would make you question his attitude. But you'd also think that he's probably done enough by this point at Toulouse to get a move, and you would have thought, hopefully, that someone higher up might have just accepted that they might not get exactly the price they wanted to, but he's given them so much over the last few years that they might let him go. But he stayed, and they look like they're going down. But we'll move on. We'll finish with the final game of the weekend this week between Lille and Lyon. Wasn't a classic by any stretch of the imagination, but the hosts managed to pull out a 1-0 win as Bruno Genesio's side finished with 9 men. I'm pretty sure you're waiting to get a lot off your chest, Eric, so I'll let you take this one. What was your opinion on Lyon's performance?
I mean, given the circumstances before the game, I'm actually not that upset about this match. The result, yes. I mean, to lose to Lille, who are have been less than effective going forward by and large this season, is frustrating. But again, you're playing with a makeshift defensive midfield of Grenier, who got sent off, deservedly so, for an elbow to Florent Beaumont late on, so you don't have Godalon, you don't have Tolisso, who's been fantastic in the last few weeks. You're playing a new formation, a 4-2-3-1. With Valbuena between Ghezal and Cornet, and yeah, it's just to have to try and keep pushing with 10 men for the better part of more than half an hour after Jallet is sending off. The odds are just stacked against them. These things happen. I don't necessarily lay the blame at any player or. I mean, maybe you could fault Genesio for not wanting to bring in the likes of an Mvwemba or pushing TT into midfield and starting maybe Morel at center back and Bedemo as at left back. But honestly, I think given the circumstances, it's hard to really put anybody to task. The referee was a little bit harsh with some of those cards, but then you look at Grenier's dust up with Mavuba. It's just it's stupidity on his part. So take it in stride, learn a lesson from it. The way the other results went this weekend, the team aren't buried. And there's plenty of opportunities to push on from here. I mean, a lot of teams are going to go to the Stade Pierre Mauroy this season and not get all 3 points. Lille are a tough team, third best defense in the league, I believe. So chalk it up to experience.
Wasn't that the worst Lyon performance of the season?
No. Did you see the Montpellier match?
No.
They lost 5-1. They lost 5-1 back in late November. It was awful, and they were getting done on the break time and again. This was under Fournier, granted, but yeah, I don't know. I think Lyon have a lot of hope. Fekir resumed light training this week. Going alone set to come back at the weekend. Tolisso will be out for another couple weeks, but I don't have any issue with this. It happens. The fact is, Lyon are still, over the last 4 or 5 matches, in the best form of any of those teams that are chasing third, given how much the others are drawing.
It's I was texting to a friend, and he did mention that Tolisso missing was a big miss in the middle of the park. What I was really annoyed with is that a side scored 10 goals in 3 games, and they just looked absolutely toothless for 90 minutes, basically. This is what really annoyed me. I thought Leeds started the game okay. I mean, bright temper and all that. I thought that Buffal was okay. So was Boteak, Benzia. Amalfitano starting on the right is pretty good as well. And I was really expecting Lyon to react and react in a very positive way, because when you win 3 games in a row by 3 goals, it means that something's going right in the creativity, in the animation, and in the finishing. And there wasn't any of that on the pitch for an hour and a half. I mean, granted, for an hour, but then Jallet did something stupid and got himself sent off, followed by Grenier. Pretty much less pissed off with Grenier, putting down to his inexperience and Balmont's experience. But it was very disappointing, personally, because I was really looking forward to this match, because I thought Lille were on the up as well, and so were Lyon. So I was really hoping both teams would attack. As it turned out, it turned out to be a massive stinker, which is unfortunate.
I'm going to make a point that I think that this was a perfect example of Lille completely and utterly nullifying anything that Lyon did throughout the game. I think poor Lacazette. I feel sorry for Lacazette, because at one point I think he came back all the way to his own box to try and receive the ball. He had that infrequent sort of touches in the final third, and the wide play just wasn't working from Cornier or Gazal. There was nothing.
I think Valbuena is more to blame in attack.
Yeah, and there was nothing from. Yeah, there's no creativity at any point, was there, Eric? That was what was frustrating.
I mean, I thought Gazal and Cornier had decent matches, but Valbuena is not a player for the center of the park. He plays at the right for the national team. His best seasons with Marseille were playing on the right of a 4-3-3. He needs to be cutting in off the wing and not deployed centrally. He's not going to look to link play in the same way that a good number 10 would, or that a second striker would. It's just simply not his role. Playing in a central area, I think a player needs to have more of a goal threat. And we know that that's not Valbuena's game. I'm not taking Valbuena to task, but were this me, I would have played Valbuena on the flank and probably started. Probably given a start to Perrin or to Perrin, honestly, to the youngster, and had him play on the wing and drop Gazal to the bench to give them a little bit more of a natural fit instead of trying to play this different formation. I mean, let's face it, Grenier. I love the player. I love how he got Lyon into the Champions League 3 seasons ago, but he's not going to be part of a midfield two, and it was no surprise to see him get sent off. The interaction with Vubu is stupid, and yeah, as you rightly say, there was some gamesmanship with the foul on Balmont, but you've got to expect that. I mean, you can't play a defensive midfield of Ferry and Grenier and expect to have it go well. Nothing against either player; it's how they're being used. But given the injuries and that they've come to face with, what are the alternatives? If Gaeta Fofana were fit, things might be a little bit different. But he's not. It's that Leonard needs must in this match, and it bit them. But I don't see anything, beyond that. I mean, yes, things didn't work out tactically, but there's very few alternatives available to Genesio at this point.
And like you say, you can look at. I thought that when you look at the bench, there was, other than youngsters, Darder and Malbronk, there's not really anything they could bring on. I thought maybe might have started Darder for one of the wingers. But just very quickly before we go, Philip, let's mention Lille a bit, because they did really perform admirably in this one, and I think the likes of Amadou and Sumaro played pretty well in their solid defensive display.
I didn't. I mean, I was more disappointed by the overall quality of the game. I'm not particularly good at noticing these kind of good defensive attitudes or interceptions when the game is so bad. So sorry to Amadou and to Mavuba. I mean, Mavuba had an okay game. To me, it was like any other week type of game for Mavuba, who just controlled the midfield without Balmont and with no problem whatsoever. It was a solid performance. It just was a solid performance. Lille have never been easy to beat. They didn't. I mean, their defensive record is pretty good. I'm looking back. I think there's only one game where they conceded more. No, actually, two games where they conceded more than one goal. I mean, they're extremely solid. They were extremely solid under Renard. It's just that they were just not going forward enough. And to me, they didn't really need to be particularly good on Sunday, because Lyon were being overrun in midfield. We're not getting the ball forward. We're not getting the ball wide. When Gazal had the ball, he didn't know how to properly use it. The same could be said of Cornet, but because of his age job, it's a bit more forgivable. But I think Lille did their job. Good.
And like you say, they've got the second best defence in Liga, and by quite a way as well. I think the next is, they've conceded 20. I think the next is, I see 24, for Nantes. So really good defensive performance.
I just wanted to throw a word in there quickly. I know we're over time as it is, but Adama Sumoro, I think, has been really, really impressive. I mean, coming up from Lille's academy, he's a bit of a late bloomer. He's only 23, but he's, alongside Savelli, he's been fantastic now that he's been given regular time. He's mobile with the ball. He's athletic, he's powerful. He allows Savelli not to have to run around as much, which is a good thing given his age. But look at the other players they brought in, Sun Tzu and Basha, who'd already been there. But he's really, I think, moved past two players who would both have been expected to start ahead of him at the beginning of the season. I think it's a real credit to him how he's come on, particularly since Antonetti's arrival.
And well done to them. It looks like they're slowly starting to creep away from those relegation places finally as well. So that's all from us this evening. My thanks to Eric and Philip, and for everyone listening at home, à bientôt and goodbye.